going on that treadmill and trying to figure out how can I become more and more productive each day? Are you tired and exhausted, feeling like you're doing like five people's job and still feeling like, you're not accomplishing all the things you want to do with your life? Today, like, I realized that there is this myth of productivity that is floating out there that I just really want to debunk. I'm definitely one of those people that is trying to do work that is like, five people efficiency, and then kind of still beating on myself to do more and more of it every day. Anyways, but before we go into that, thank you for coming back to another episode of Water Cooler Chit Chat with Jesus. Basically, this is where I share some of the conversations I have with Jesus with you, as if we're just like hanging out around in the water cooler, and just, at the middle of your workday, and just kind of like talking about some of the things that, um, is relevant to our daily lives. So, anyways, I'm one of those people that watches tremendously amount of like productivity workshops, or YouTube videos, or like even go into master classes about, or reading about all of that good stuff, because I'm all about like, how do I make the best use of the time that I have on earth, right? And I think that is like, being a good steward of my time and the blessings that God has given to my life. But over the last couple of years, God has been trying to get into my head and saying, He didn't create for me to be a slave. That slave mentality, task driven, taskmaster kind of God image, that is not the true, lovely Papa God that, is just wooing me all the time to know how much He loves me and that I am His child, one that He cherishes. And actually, that slave mentality, that is from the pit of hell. That is where the enemy tries to convince us that we are not co-heirs of Christ, but instead that we need to um, work as in overwork ourselves, treating ourselves as if we were a tool instead of a human being, trying to get our, like, use ourselves, manipulate ourselves to become a means to an end, instead of being good enough just on our own, kind of thing. So here's the thing. God made us because He wanted to enjoy us, not because He needed more servants or slaves. Yes, the Bible calls us bond servants of God, but that is in the context of like, we're bond servants in the context that Paul was talking about, are people that are in that relationship where they desire to serve their master because they love and they cherish and they honor that person. It's not because of how, it's not the way we think about slave and the mentality where, like, you just use them dry. And a lot of our society nowadays, even though we don't have slave in the sense that, like, there's no free will, but we have got ourselves into a slave mentality towards the work that we have been given, which is work, in the biblical sense, should be something that is holy, that is where you're using your hands and your giftings to um, honor and serve the other people in our lives, right? And so therefore work should be worship. Work comes from a place of where we co-partner with God, to becoming more and more of that person that we were created to be, and we're honoring God, and we're honoring ourselves, and we're honoring one another, and we're loving God, loving ourselves, and loving one another in the way that we work. So I think productivity isn't trying to speed things up. I was watching a video, I swear, this morning. The first thing I did when I woke up was like grabbed my phone, and I went scrolling on YouTube for another productivity video. And it was like, 12 hacks to, becoming more productive, right? And like, how to speed up work for yourself, right? Like, and those were really good things about, like, how to make time work for you, right? Like that speed up time in a way. the 12 things that the gentleman mentioned. But I think as I was watching that, like I felt heavily convicted by the Holy Spirit reminding me once again, like, since I'm not a slave, so it's not about working faster and harder, but it's really about holy work where it's enjoying and co-creating with God. So therefore, actually need to slow down in order to speed up. What I mean is, like, imagine yourself in a three-legged race, and if two people aren't coordinated yet on knowing how to, like, walk together in that three-legged race, then one person just keep on trying to sprint forward is only just gonna, like, are you gonna try to drag the other person forward? You can't, right? Like, that actually slows you down. And actually the way to move forward is that we need to be partnering with God in that three-legged race, and that when we partner with him and we allow him to be the one leading and guiding us, then it actually he brings us to detours that we never even thought of ourselves, and um, that actually brings us forward, propelling us forward in a way that we didn't think about before. I'm just suddenly remembering something that I read in a devotional about C.S. Lewis in the book of Mere Christianity, and that's why I was like, okay, let me grab that from my from my cupboard. So I'm just reading from the devotional classics from Richard Foster. It's a collection of, like, a lot of devotional classics, right? And the one about C.S. Lewis is right in the front. And from Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis wrote that laziness means more work in the long run. Or look at it this way: in the battle or in mountain climbing, there is often one thing which it takes a lot of pluck to do, but it is also in the long run the safest thing to do. If you funk it, you will find yourself hours later in far worse dangers. The cowardly thing is also the most dangerous thing. So it just reminds us, like, like, we actually, to become productive, we actually need to slow down and do the right thing, which is to abide in God and allow him to co-author with us, to co-run with us, and to do the holy work of co-creating with us. And that is actually what slow so it seems like slow and steady, but in the long run, that is where it's going to bring you to where you need to be. And as I was preparing for our time together, I was also reading from Isaiah 51, verse 3, and I'm reading from the Passion Translation. Isaiah 51, verse 3, Passion Translation says, "Indeed, Yahweh will comfort Zion, restore her, and comfort all her broken places. He will transform her wilderness into the garden of bliss, her desert into the garden of Yahweh. Joy and laughter will fill the air with thanksgiving and joyous melodies." And I felt like God was just inviting us for him to restore us, to bring us to wholeness. And what he means by restoration and wholeness isn't just like about healing, inner healing, physical healing, and all that good stuff, or spiritual healing and all that good stuff. It actually means that he is inviting us to becoming the wholeness of that person that we were created to be. And when we are functioning at the best of who we were created to be, that is what productivity is about. It's not about doing more things. It's about being that whole person that you were intended and created to be. And the only way, there's no shortcuts around it, is to abide in God. And I just love this verse because Isaiah 51 verse 3, because he is promising that he is the one that will restore us. He is the one that will comfort all the places that were broken. And broken, again, is not just like, soul wise, heart wise, or physically, like what we see as brokenness, right? But it's brokenness as in the parts of us that aren't functioning to the fullest capacity of who we were created to be. And he is promising that he will be the one to bring all of that into completion. And he wants to transform all the places that was once wilderness or desert or barren into gardens of bliss, gardens of Yahweh, like the place where he can meet us, like in the Garden of Eden, where there's joy and laughter will fill the air, and that there'll be thanksgiving and there'll be melodies of songs and praise. Beloved, can you Can you see it? Can you see the picture that the Lord is inviting you to this morning? That He's inviting you to a place where there is no more striving. There is no more rat race, but that as you become that person you were created to be, that you are uniquely empowered to be, that you can just enjoy life with Him, just the way that Adam and Eve was able to enjoy life with Him before the fall, before we forgot who we are, before we forgot that, our inheritance is in God. And inheritance, oh my goodness, allow me to go on another tangent of inheritance. This is something that God has been putting in my heart the last month or so, to understand that, inheritance isn't something that you can win by merit in any way. When you are an heir, it's your birthright. You were born into it. There was nothing you could have done to earn it, and there is nothing you can do to make it even better. Okay, so and that's the thing. You are a co-heirs with Christ. It is your birthright when you have been reborn again as a Christian, when you've been reborn again, allowing God to be your Father God. You have the right to inherit all the blessings and abundance that He has desired for you, that Jesus had died on the cross for you. And when we don't abide in Him, we are forfeiting that abundance. We are saying, no, I do not want my heirloom. I do not want my inheritance. I want to be a slave. And that just totally doesn't make sense. Why would you choose to be a slave when you are an heir? Right? So I think today, like, the invitation, beloved, is that are you tired, sick and tired of being that slave on that rat race? Or are you ready to step into receiving your inheritance from God, receiving that you are His beloved and that there is no way around it? And that, are you ready to let Him guide and lead you and walk with Him in this three-legged race, moving forward, allowing for Him to show you what are the things that He is doing, and that we would partner with Him in doing all of those things, so that, just like Jesus said, I only do what my Father says to do, or what He is doing, and all that good stuff. Will that be your mantra today? And what is something that will be helpful for you to remembering that? I have a little wooden cross that I just started carrying around again, just to remind me, like, it's like, as I'm holding that cross, I'm reminding myself I'm holding the hands of Jesus. I don't want to run ahead of Him or fall behind. And I just want to abide and make sure that we're walking every step together. So, beloved, thank you for dropping in for another chit chat. And I pray that this was, you know, uh, a blessing to you. And I pray that you will yield to the invitation that God is extending to you today, to just sit with Him and let Him guide and lead you, and allow all the things that are, scatterbraining, that is distracting you. Let it go. Because I think a lot of times we put a lot more pressure on ourselves to do things that isn't really moving the needle forward, but more of anxiety than anything. And only when we co-partner with Him, that He gives us clarity on what are the things that is really going to move the needle forward. Anyways, I hope this was useful. Before we go, I just wanted to remind us once again that you are loved, you are seen, you belong to Jesus, and you are accepted just the way you are.